Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to today's Power Boost. Keeping an eye on yourself. One fact is that all of us, we are very busy in our thinking. We think a lot, moment by moment, day by day, day after day. But what triggers all of these thoughts, or the majority of our thoughts, where are they coming from? So one sense organ that we use constantly are our eyes, right? So we keep looking at people, what they do, how they do, what they don't do, how they look like. We look at places. Our eyes are constantly busy. And I'm constantly, by looking at someone, something, constantly engaging in the world around me. And typically what happens, we not only look at others and look outside, but we, at the same time, we are absorbing. We constantly absorbing information from the world, the outside, the world around us and from the world outside me. Whether it's through the eyes or through the ears, I absorb what I see, I absorb vibrations, what I hear, the words, and then I start to process, I start to think. And typically then we also start to speak about it. And so by the end of the day, many times for many of us, what is the experience? Oh, I feel a little bit tired. I'm actually a little bit exhausted. I don't really feel like doing something that is meaningful. I turn on the TV, I go to the fridge, I call someone, I go out, I play on the phone. I keep myself engaged in doing things in order to just pass the time, or to even just get even more stimulated through the physical sense perception. And all of that does not allow me to actually look within, to pause, to stop, and take a look. What is actually going on behind these eyes? How do I feel? You know, where am I? And so keeping an eye on yourself, keeping an eye on the self means there's love involved. When we keep an eye on someone, is many times or mostly out of care, right? And care is a form of love. So it's a sign of mercy, is a sign of an act of love to give some attention on their own self, not just our physical identity, that includes all our physical appearance and so on, but deeper within, the self that is thinking, that is feeling, that is making decisions. Who looks after that being? Who cares for me, that being that is constantly active and actually wants to experience peace and love? So the physical eyes see the body, but there is a third eye, and that third eye is actually not visible. And that third eye, it is depicted in different stories and mythologies. That eye is actually the intellect that has woken up, the awakened intellect, that has understood, that is understanding, that there is much more to me than just this physical costume. And so unless I start to respect, I start to care for the being, for that subtle, that subtle being, that subtle energy, that is actually the living, conscious energy, the self. And that is where we connect to we go beyond the physical identity, and within, behind these eyes, I connect to my spiritual identity. So keeping an eye on the self means to remain aware of myself in a bigger context, that there are subtle aspects to myself. And if I don't pay attention on my mind, on the thoughts that I have, if I don't care for myself, don't respect for myself, who will? We expect it from others. Sometimes we get that respect or love or attention, approval. Many times we don't. So as long as I expect someone or something to give me something, what state am I in? Yes, that is dependency. And so in spirituality, the spiritual journey, we learn to reclaim our power. We learn about the true self, the subtle being, the soul, that conscious being that is doing everything. And we learn how to empower the self, how to care for the self. And so in this way, if I practice this a little bit, I become much more, it's like I'm in charge of my own mind. I am in charge of myself. Meaning, if I pause and stop from time to time and look within with my third eye, remind myself about all the goodness that is within me, all the powers that I have, then I will also realize that I have a choice. Do I want to interact now or not? And if I choose to interact, how do I interact? What do I say? How do I say it? You see, this is where our power lies. I can choose how to interact with the world around me, but also, and that is almost more important, I have the power to choose how to interact and treat my own self. For example, I make a mistake, right, in whatever way. And many times after making a mistake, we feel bad about it. So do I put myself down? Am I critical with myself? Do I feel guilty? Do I punish myself? Do I tell myself off because I did something that I actually didn't want to do? Or is my relationship with myself such that I actually empower the self so that I'm able to learn, willing to improve, willing to bring some change, to use the memory of what has happened for my benefit. Okay, this was the situation. This is how I handled it. What is it that I can do differently the next time? So the overall attitude towards the self is very beneficial. And in order to learn, and that is true for everyone, in order for us to learn, we need an environment of love. If there is some kind of fear, anxiety, there's tension, there's contraction, how can you ever flourish? How can you use your inner abilities for your own benefit and the benefit for the world? How can I have clarity of mind? How can I process information appropriately if there is fear, if there is anger, if there's upsetness, if there's carelessness? So how I treat myself is how I relate to myself. And this is at a subtle level, right? It's basically our self-talk. And the more I develop a relationship of kindness with myself, I will empower myself, encourage to learn, encourage to have compassion for the self, have respect. And whatever beautiful qualities I use to relate to myself, to coach, to train, to teach myself, automatically the same qualities then and attitudes, of course, I will also use for others in my relationship with others. So that keeping an eye on the self is very, very beneficial and will also give me the experience of being in charge of myself and not dependent. And so my overall well-being will increase a lot. So let us move into a meditation now. And so for the next few minutes, I choose to let go, to detach, to go beyond, to connect myself at a deeper level than just be aware about my physical sense perception, what I see, what I feel, what I hear, what I taste. So to move into this inward journey, I first be aware the environment I am in, the room, maybe even the temperature, the smell, maybe there is some noise. I become aware about that. I accept it. I feel safe. I feel secure and ready to connect within, to look out, actually look in, to touch on the true self, the self, the conscious being that resides behind the eyes. I, the spiritual being, I, the soul, I am a living, conscious being of light. I live in this body. I actually keep this body functioning and alive. I, the spiritual being, the soul, I am distinct, separate from the body. I use the body. I use the body to interact with the world around me. But the one who is doing, thinking, feeling, making decisions, is the one that is very subtle, invisible to the physical eye. And I, the being, I'm beautiful, I'm peaceful, I am clean, pure, honest, loveful, joyful, strong, and wise. These are my innate qualities. And so I have a choice to be peaceful. I have the power to be peaceful. Because this is really who I truly am. So I keep the third eye, the eye of the soul, open to look at myself. Not only look at myself, but remind myself of my innate goodness, my original state of being that is of peace and happiness. This is self-care. When I stop and pause and give attention to the true self, remind myself my inner strength, remind the self about everything that I have, the talents, the specialties. There's appreciation, there's value for who I truly am. This refreshes my mind, refreshes my soul. And with that awareness of being a being of goodness, I am peace. I then come back into action and I use my mind while I'm calm and peaceful. And my mind will then work for me. Om Shanti.